What we're going to be talking about today is environment. And actually in the title here, good morning, Sasha. Good morning, Rosemary. In the title, I put in here, let me turn that background noise off. If you don't shape your environment will shape you. And so one of the books that I've been reading lately is called Willpower Doesn't Work. You're going to always hear me talking about books because I read like at least 10 books. I'm not kidding, like 10 books at a time. And I finish them all. So I know it's like a gift I have, by the way. And so I haven't read the entire book yet. I will tell you that. I haven't read the entire book yet. It's one of the many books that I've had on entrepreneurship, on mindset and high performance that's been sitting on my shelf. So I started flipping through it the other day, and so it's called Willpower Doesn't Work, Discover the Hidden Keys to Success, and it's by Benjamin Hardy. Have you ever read this? If you have, let me know. But one of the things that really stood out that he mentions here early on in the book is something that I talk about often. It's something that I talk about often with my clients and my coaching academy, and just in life in general. And it's the idea that, number one, willpower does not work. I say that even when I am training for, my competitions and, food, measuring food and all of that stuff is a big part of the training. Well, guess what happens when I get to that part of my training? I don't rely on willpower. I make sure I don't have the junk foods that I like, that I know I will succumb to at some point, right? So the point of that is it's not about willpower. And so if it's not about willpower that gets us these incredible results and that has us excel in a certain area that other people do not excel in, then what is it if it's not willpower? Well, it's several things. But the one that we're going to talk about today is environment. Environment, if you don't shape your environment, it will shape you. So I want to just read this one piece here from the book. And it says, well, first of all, your environment includes your physical surroundings, of course, the people you choose to form relationships with, the information that you let in, which is what, you guys always hear me talking about, like the information that you let in, mindset, right? The foods that you consume, the music that you listen to, the news that you listen to, all of that is environment. All of that is environment. And if you don't shape the environment, the information that you allow to come in, the people that you spend your time with, the foods that you consume, the music, all of those things, if you don't take ownership and start to shape that, then it's going to shape you. And up until a certain point in our lives, it has shaped us, right? This is all mindset, right? So that which is external shapes that which is internal, right? The mindsets, the beliefs that we have until we interrupt them, if they're no longer working for us, and reshape them, they come from our childhood. They come from our upbringing. They come from our cultures, right? So if you grew up a white person in the southern United States in the 50s, then you're going to have a certain worldview that's going to be different from, let's say, somebody at the same time who grew up in North Korea or, in Europe somewhere. So you guys get that point, right? You get that point. And here's what I know for sure. Like, I can think of in my own life, and you can do this with me today. Think about an area of your life that you've created a change in. You've created a transformation in. Maybe it's in your financial circumstances. Maybe it's in your health, your fitness. Maybe it's your spirituality. Maybe it's your marriage or your personal relationship. But an area of your life that you have transformed in a big way. Think about what one of the main things is that you did related to your environment, because there's somewhere in that shift, preceding that shift, where you started to make some environment changes. So I'm going to use myself for an example here. When I was in grade school or middle school, there was a point in the 8th grade, right? You know, you're going to be going to high school. And so you're signing up for school and all of that. And I was going to be signing up for my regular local public high school. And I had my group of friends and the whole thing, right? Well, something happened that I only started to understand when I got older and started connecting the dots and asking questions. Someone came to our school and said that they were awarding a scholarship to a female into this prestigious girls' private school in our town, and that they were looking for someone in the local schools that, you know, they could award the scholarship to. So in my school, I was nominated by the principal and my teachers. Now, I had no idea. I was in this really poor school, a Catholic school, but really poor. Like, I think the tuition was like $100 a year. And, you know, I was there, it was all Latinos and African Americans. I was in my community. It's the environment that I knew. And here I was nominated to go to this school where, you know, it was all white Americans. I think there was like, fast forward, I was awarded the scholarship, but I went to this school and it was complete culture shock. Okay, complete culture shock for me. Now, at first I didn't want to go. Right? I was like completely freaked out. I had my friends that I was, you know, going to school with. And, you know, I was on my way to a certain life. I was on my way to a certain life, a certain lifestyle that was really going to be a continuation of the environment that I already grew up in. However, because there were some, you know, God moments that had happened, and in this state of Delaware, in the city of Wilmington, I was chosen out of these girls that were nominated for this scholarship. I went into this school in a completely different environment, and a whole world of new possibility opened up for me. Have you ever had a moment like that, right? Look back in your life again at where there's been a big transformation or change. Something in your environment changed first. So I didn't control that, right? That's something that the adults, thank God, in my life at that time, the angels, right, school angels, happened to be able to control for me. They were able to change an environment. Now, at first I was resistant, right? But very quickly I realized, through all the resistance and the shock and, you know, the like not feeling like I fit in and not understanding this new world, I quickly also started to realize, whoa, there's a whole other life out here. There's a whole other world out here, because now I went from being in my environment with other kids who were like me and families who were like me, you know, great families, but really struggling families, right? And also around people that were just the same. What happens when you are exposed to something different, radically different, whether positive or negative? You have a new interpretation. You see possibilities in a different way. You start to experience people differently. And so what happened to me in that moment was like, wow, there are families that live like this. There are people that have money. There are people that travel. There are people that communicate in a certain way. I mean, everything was wide open for me. And at that moment, in those years in high school, as you know, I had that experience, I began to use that as the catalyst, the launching off pad at any time in my life when I knew that I wanted something different. When I knew that I wanted something to change, I thought about how the fact that I now went to this private girls' school that my mother never could have afforded to pay, but now I had this whole new opportunity, and excellent education and just exposure to people and situations and information and culture that I never would have had before. So going forward, as my adult life progressed, I used that as a reminder that, okay, if I want to change a specific situation, then it gets to start with me changing the environment. Because what started to happen as for me being in that school is I started to get different friends. I started to have positive experiences. I started to get some support in areas that I had never gotten support in. And I started seeing, ooh, all these possibilities for my life that I never knew were going to be possible, because I wasn't in an environment that was telling me that it was possible, right? And so when I wanted to quit smoking, I knew that I had to change my environment, right? I knew I had to limit my time with people that were smokers. I knew I had to find an online support community that could support me with that. When I decided to become an entrepreneur, no one in my family was an entrepreneur. None of my friends. I wasn't surrounded by anyone like that. So I knew I had to not only get a coach, but I also had to start associating myself with other people who were entrepreneurs or who were pursuing that. Right? When I decided that I'm going to have a certain kind of marriage and I'm going to settle down with a certain type of person, and I got really clear on my manifesting vision, I started to look for examples of relationships that exemplified something close to what I wanted. Right? I started to change my environment. When I decided that I wanted to completely change my lifestyle and be healthy, right? I was in a family where my grandparents had type 2 diabetes, you know, everyone smoked, drank, ate bad food, right? Like the opposite of health. When I decided that, you know what, I want to be like those people over there who look healthy and vibrant and radiant. And, you know, I remember seeing like women who were like in their 50s and 60s at that time, I thought like were old, right? And they were like, had more energy. They looked more vibrant than me or anyone that I knew. And that became my inspiration. So I knew I had to change my environment around that. I knew I had to get books on these things, right? That was back when you still went to the library and the Barnes and Noble, right? I knew I had to start taking classes. I had to start making friends with people who also wanted those things, right? So environment, it's like saturating your mind, your energy, everything that you consume around whatever area of your life it is that you want to create a change or transformation in. Everything that you consume adds to that. It either supports that transformation or takes away from it, right? It either supports it or takes away from it. So if there's something that you're desiring in your life, and share with me in the comments something that you're desiring in your life so that I can go back and perhaps support you in this. By just asking you a couple of questions here in the thread that we can go back and forth on. Don't be shy, right? Like, here's the thing. When you share something, you also support and help someone else who's watching live or who's watching the replay. So if there's something that you want to create a change in, I've been speaking to someone, I won't say this person's name, but I've been speaking to her and kind of counseling her on a change that she wants to make. A change that she wants, a huge change. She wants to go from being an employee to successfully being an entrepreneur, successfully having this business. We actually did a Vivid Vision session, and she had this huge breakthrough around what she wants to do. And her vision is really clear for this company that she gets to create, and that I know that she will be tremendous in. But the piece that's still holding her back is environment. The piece that's still holding her back is environment. And here's the truth. If you don't have an environment around you that can support you through that kind of big transformation, which requires you to think differently, do things differently, it requires you to bounce ideas consistently or constantly with other like-minded people, if you don't have that, it's like an uphill battle. It's always hitting a wall. Right? It's like if you were an alcoholic and you're trying to just, you know, put your head down in isolation and quit all by yourself, right? It's like a daily thing that you need support around. And then if you're like hanging out with a bunch of addicts or active addicts, right, it's going to be impossible to win that battle. It's the same thing with anything that you're pursuing. What is the environment that you're surrounding yourself with? Who are the people? What are the things that you're listening to? What are the beliefs that you're allowing, or the thoughts that you're allowing to become beliefs, right? If you don't shape your environment, it will shape you. I want to read this last piece before we tie up. The truth is that you and your environment are two parts of the same whole. You and your environment are two parts of the same whole. Who you are and what you can do in one situation is starkly different from who you are and what you can do in a different situation. Do you get that? Who you are and what you can do in one situation, in one environment, is starkly different than who you are and what you can do in a different environment. So, in the example of the person that I'm talking to you about, what she's able to accomplish and who she's able to become in that pursuit of this business and this company and becoming an entrepreneur, if she stays doing it by herself, hidden, that she's going to have a completely different experience than if she comes over into an environment of other entrepreneurs, coaches, and support that can help her through all those sticky moments and help her to shortcut her way there. Just like with me, I had certain dreams and visions inside of me that had I not moved into this other environment where people were living a much more abundant, open life, had I stayed in the environment that I was in with those dreams, with those thoughts, but with nobody around me in my environment, or very few, I want to say, who could actually nurture that and could actually exemplify that that was possible, then who knows where I would be today? Who knows where I would be today? And, you know, I've got a good inkling because I see the people that I grew up with who did not have a change in environment. You get that? And I see where they are in relation to where I am. It has, and I don't mean about success. I'm talking about so many other things, right? So when you change environment, and shift into an environment that supports the goals and dreams and desires that you have, then your possibility is exponentially greater than if you were to stay in an environment that does not support that. You guys get me on that? Okay, so I would love for you to share your thoughts, your comments here. I see that there's a bunch of them here, and I'll take 1 minute to quickly go through. Catherine, I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't changed my environment from the Chicago neighborhood to California. See, like it's so specific and individual for each of us, right? And yeah, like physically changing your environment, that's one way. Love this topic. Transformation was about my marriage and family. I became an energy healer and transformational coach in that process, and meant that I joined brand new communities. I met Jessica. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Evram. Yes, transforming our marriage and family was a commitment both my husband and I made, right? And so it's the same thing, like your spouse and the people that you're close to, right? That's part of your really close community. And so they've got to be on the same wavelength as in terms of like what the values are, right? Same thing. One of my desires is to be an example to children and other families. Beautiful. I stayed in leadership coaching for a long time because it was an area for me to shine. I will create that new arena with you in my money coaching this year. Oh, that's so exciting, Catherine. Catherine and I are starting to work together, and there's going to be some exciting things coming your way. And I know, Evram, we are on our way to working together too. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. Share in the comments if you're watching the replay, what's an area of your life that you want to change or transform, and is the current environment that you are spending the most of your time with, people, books, languages, music, news, whatever it is that you're absorbing, that's part of your environment, does that support where it is you want to go? Okay, thank you guys. I will see you tomorrow. Hot Seat Friday. I've got a special guest who is brave enough to put herself in the hot seat and be coached right on the spot. So please join us here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific time. Bye.